feels like to ride the ZH2. I have a theory, and that theory is that Kawasaki secretly hates their riders. Stick with me here. Kawasaki's powersports division is basically a rounding error on Kawasaki Heavy Industries' balance sheet, since they make the bulk of their cash selling trains, planes, and automobiles, along with ships and other industrial equipment, to companies that use the word concern in their official name. Do you think a company like that cares that you bought a little KLX 250? No, of course not, because they have to sell a million KLX 250s to make as much as selling a single container ship. I would assume. I don't actually know, but it sounds right. Anywho, in a world like that, it would make sense that motorcyclists who constantly complain about how their 600 can't hit 186 miles an hour would do nothing but irritate the higher-ups.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Hence the original H2 in 1972, a two-stroke 750cc triple that stacked bodies like Bezos stacks billions. It pumped out 74 horsepower and 57 foot-pounds of torque, which, given some of the numbers you're going to hear in a minute, is going to sound adorable. But remember, this was back when tires were basically made out of basketball rubber, suspension springs were glorified mattress springs, and disc brakes were marginally better than the Flintstones method. For the sake of brevity, I'm going to skip over 40 or so years of history, but suffice it to say that the Speed Wars happened, the Busa won, and no one cared that Kawasaki made the ZX14, which was a demonstrably faster and better bike. So everybody went home, and while the world kept turning, Kawasaki stewed. From a decade of noogies and misplaced anger came the first Ninja H2, a 999cc inline 4 with a world first. The first bike to feature a supercharger. It claims 228 horsepower and 104 foot-pounds of torque with the best tech Kawi could throw at it, which somehow still doesn't include Öhlins front forks, but I'm not judging. And that's not to mention the H2R, which is a track-only version and puts down a paltry 310 horsepower and 121 foot-pounds of torque. No wonder Ebe's gotten his H2 to put down some bonkers power numbers. But the reality is some people have a death wish and back problems and couldn't get in on the fun. Enter the ZH2, an H2 that headbutted a blender and came out the other side looking like every other Kawasaki naked bike. Lumpy, pointy, and green. It's making 197 horsepower and 101 foot-pounds of torque while weighing in at 527 pounds, which puts it in the running to top out the hypernaked category both in terms of power and weight. But don't let that fool you. This bike will still rip your arms off and beat you to death with them like a Wookiee losing a board game. Which reminds me, you don't want to have your phone in your pocket while you're riding this thing around. G-forces will rip it right out from under you and leave you high and dry. That's why smart people use Quad Lock. Quad Lock has mounts that fit on any bike, whether it's a sport bike, cafe racer, cruiser, or hypernaked death missile. The best part is that those mounts will hold your phone snugly to the handlebars and won't let go. I've been riding both on and off-road with my Quad Lock, and I've never had to worry about premature ejection. They also have a suite of accessories, from vibration dampers to mag wallets to wireless chargers. They even make gear for off the bike too. Click that link down below and check out everything that Quad Lock has to offer, and a huge shout out to Quad Lock for sponsoring the channel. Now, this has been too many words and not enough supercharger flutter, so let's hit the Twisties and see how it shakes down.
So mounting up on the ZH2 for the first time is a really interesting experience. We got to talk a little bit about the bike itself because it's a very peculiar package to me, right? It feels very much like if somebody tried to pixelate a Sea-Doo. I'm sorry. They're just like, they're not very smooth, and they're not a very pretty thing to look at while you're sitting on it. You know, usually one of those things that you say is that it doesn't matter what the bike looks like when you're riding it because you can't see it. Well, you kind of can see a lot of stuff on this bike, and it doesn't look great. I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this, but I think that most folks who are coming to the ZH2 do not give a fuck about how it looks to themselves or others. It's not a taste thing that brings you to this. It's the motor, right? It's the motor. It is a very, very unique package, man. And it absolutely does not fail to put a smile on my face. It is one of the most amazing inline fours out there. I don't love the way inline fours make their power. I've never gelled with it. I prefer a lot more low and mid-range grunt because that's where I sit, right? Even now, I'm filming and talking, but most of the time I'm usually sitting in the middle of the power band. That's usually where the bike is smoothest for me as the rider. And there's not a lot of power there, but because this thing is supercharged, it's got a lot of power everywhere. I mean, that really is the solution to my woes when it comes to inline fours. Just put a supercharger on it. I mean, it really does allow you to enjoy this motor kind of no matter how you end up riding, right? If you're the kind of guy who rides in the middle of the power band, it's got something for you. If you're the kind of guy who spends a lot of time at the top of the power band, it's got even more for you because somehow it managed to squeeze even more into that top end of the power band. There's so much power on tap here, and it's so broad. Now we got to talk a little bit about the handling. It's fine. It's good. It's good. I do feel like the suspension is going to require some attention if you're my size. I feel like this spring just can't do it. It's not great. It definitely feels like they could have given us a slightly heavier spring from the factory, but I'm not the normal percentile rider. I'm heavier. And as a result, it doesn't feel as sharp as it could. You know, I feel like Showa makes some good forks. They make good suspension hardware. This bike just it's fine. Like, I can tell. Here's how I know that this is just it's fine. I can tell that if I were to take this to a racetrack, I'd be having some questions for it, for sure. But again, something tells me, just based on my time at Coda with a bunch of guys who like to spend money on motorcycles, I don't see a lot of ZH2s at a racetrack. So I feel like this is the midnight club squid out there who just wants to absolutely crush and dominate in a roll race, you know, and still be comfortable while he's doing it. Like maybe it's some guy who threw his back out and needs a little bit more comfort in his ride, but still wants to be the fastest thing on two wheels. Yeah, okay, that'll work. It's kind of what Kawasaki wants this bike to be, and you can feel it. I do have to say though, holy cow, is this the bestest quick shifter I've ever felt. Like there really is no better quick shifter on the market, I don't think, than a Kawasaki quick shifter. It's so smooth, especially the blipper. You don't even feel the interrupt. It's so smooth, and the throw is so short that you're just like, let's go. It just gives you that sort of energy of just insanity. That's the vibe, man. This bike's vibe is, let's f***ing go. It's creatine, protein shakes, and just like pre-workout all crammed into a motorcycle, just like, let's go! The squid energy is off the charts with this thing. It is absolutely off the charts. And I think that's honestly really good, right? The feedback that it gives you when you roll off the throttle, you get the flutter, you have this amazing engine, you have adequate brakes, I would say. Like, they're pretty damn good. But the Nissan, right? It's like for every good point, there's 1.5 things that I could niggle it for. So the brake feel is good, but the master cylinder's cheap. The dashboard kind of sucks, but the technology is good. right? The bike is butt ugly, but the exhaust sound and the engine just make up for it. This is the experience you get when somebody puts all of their points into one thing on the perk tree, man. Just one thing. And I'd like to get a little bit more specific about some of my problems, because I know there's some people already in the comments being like, you're not being very nice to this motorcycle. You gotta get off it and get back on your Super Duke, dummy. Let me justify some of my points, shall I?
Let's try and up the sophistication a little bit on this video, because I feel like I spent a lot of time on the road just like...
It's got a lot of power everywhere.
So let's dial it back a little bit. I have occasionally been known to relate the power to sort of an intelligence scale, shall we say. I usually call it the Unga Bunga factor. And if we're gonna do that with this motorcycle, this thing is sitting on the back of the short bus eating a drywall and crayon sandwich. This is the dumbest motorcycle I've ever felt. I think the Rocket 3 might be one seat forward on a short bus, honestly, but this thing is like, it's the dumbest power band I've ever felt. And it's awesome for that. I don't need sophistication, but it's just, it's nice to find a motorcycle that revels in its own stupidity. Whereas the Rocket 3 did feel like it was taking itself seriously, this thing absolutely does not. That does come with some cons. Like I mentioned on the road, I do not love the suspension on this motorcycle. I do feel like I could get close to approximating something that would make this bike handle the way that I want it to if it's competing with top shelf naked bikes. But right now, it just does not feel good. It is fully adjustable, but it's not great. Another thing, I mentioned it on the road, but this lever kinda sucks. I mean, it's a Nissan master cylinder on here with a remote reservoir. It looks like a Brembo unit, but it's not. And it's paired with Brembos, but give me the real thing. For this bike and the way that you ride it, you really do need a better master cylinder on this thing. It is fine. It's fine. It's gonna stop the motorcycle, but you can override this master cylinder, and that's my point. If you were to put a Brembo on here that pairs more nicely with the Brembo brakes up front, then I think you'd be talking. Also, Kawasaki. Rubber hoses? Really? Really now? On this motorcycle? Rubber brake lines. What the actual fuck are you talking about? Why would you do that? It's just, it feels like there are so many corners that got cut to make such an amazing motor. Like I said, if you take all of your points out of every other one of your perk trees and put it into strength, you are going to be so wide in that video game you can't walk through a door, so you're just gonna make your own door. But then when you have to pass a stealth check, a speech check, just any other kind of check, you're just gonna be sitting there like, duh. And that's this bike, man. And again, I'm not saying that that is bad, right? It's so refreshing in a world that takes itself, as the Joker would say,
Why so serious?
This is the antidote. But you need to realize that with that comes drawbacks. Like again, the dashboard. It's not very good on here. It's fine. It shows you everything you need to know, but it feels decidedly last gen. And that's a lot of this motorcycle. Decidedly last gen. Now I say that knowing that this is a 2024. Okay, so just wanted to jump in here for a quick correction. I was wrong. This is a 2023 model right here. And for 2025 and 26, they have fully adjustable electronic suspension on here, which is their show up setup. And while that is going to be an improvement and it's going to set the preload better, I still have a feeling that under the weight of this bike and the power, probably going to feel a little bit squishy, and then the dashboard is basically exactly the same. The bike is very, very, very similar, except with a few extra bells and whistles for the SE. And compared to my Duke, which is a generation older, this feels a generation older than what I have. You know, the seat material doesn't feel very premium. The way that the plastics are put together doesn't feel super premium. And honestly, it's not a very good looking motorcycle, but I cannot get past how good the motor is. If we mount up
The position, the tank is really wide. I'm not gonna lie. It's a very wide tank, and the seat height is pretty tall. Shut up, Kawasaki. My KLR used to do this exact same thing. Whew, now I'm sitting in a cloud of gasoline. But anyway, the seat height is not bad, right? It's tall if I were to sit back here because the seat gets wide, and the tank is wide, but I have a feeling that's to justify the rest of the bike being pretty wide. Sitting on it, it's very, very comfortable, and it's shocking how upright this bike is. It really does feel like street bike first and foremost, and possibly only. To be perfectly honest, I'd be terrified taking this to a racetrack in its current setup. Like, the tires are great. The gear on this bike is great. But with the sort of lacking brakes and how astonishingly quickly this thing puts on speed, you need to modify some stuff on here. And in a world of like finished hypernakeds right out of the gate, where the only thing you have to do is tune it, it's hard for me to say that this thing outruns something like a Super Duke or a Street Triple RS or a Speed Triple RS or a Tuono V4 or anything like that. It probably maybe is going to be more reliable. I do not know, because it's supercharged. You know, I know people like Ebe, who's pushing, I think, 350 to the wheel out of his H2. So these things are capable of some astonishing power. But once you start pushing a bike like that, reliability just kind of goes out the window. Now, I want to take this thing out in what I think personally is its natural habitat, and that is the highway, and absolutely just demolish some 5.0s in a straight line, if I can find any. It's Texas. There's probably going to be some 5.0s out there. Now, I wasn't really joking about the hunting 5.0s thing, because this thing really does just feel kind of like an apex predator on the highway. It's very hard to not just see like a little opening between cars and just gun it, because you have an enormous amount of power to just make it happen. And because the power comes on so instantly on this motorcycle, again, it feels very V-twin-like. You can just go, right? There's no waiting for the inline 4 to spool up, which I know some people love, but I do not. I like my power to be immediate. I like it to be there as soon as I ask for it. But also, I mean, it kind of feels like you shouldn't be obeying the rules of mortal man when you're on it, because like, it's a supercharged motorcycle, so you are the one who makes the rules now, kinda. I am the captain now. Like, I don't want to be behind this stupid AT&T truck, but there's a moment right here where I just don't have to wait. Right? Apex Predator. It's so easy to go fast and just dominate everything around you like it's standing still. And now that we're actually getting on the highway, we could talk about how the comfort of this motorcycle actually translates. It's shocking how good this bike is at going fast while keeping you comfy. I feel like with a slightly more cushiony seat, something that's got some like better gel in it, maybe a little bit wider too, the seat would be perfect, and you could just sit on here all day and just, you know, stupid pulls as much as you want. Also, when you're doing your big pulls like that, seeing what the top speed is when you're doing yourself a little bit of gear check, you know, you need to make sure that fourth gear pulls all the way to red line, you know, just for science. When you're doing that, I don't know, you're not worried about how this motorcycle feels on the side of the tire, which is not great. I don't know, it it just works. It just works. And you've got all the rider modes, and you've got cruise control. The nice thing is the cruise control, honestly, it's better than what's on my Aprilia Tuono, my 660. It's just on and set and done. That's it. And then you got roll forward to kill, which my Tuono does not have, which I think is very odd. Every cruise control motorcycle should have roll forward to kill. I don't know. It's so viscerally enjoyable on the highway, and you're boiling it down to what it's truly best at, that this is probably the most fun I've had on the highway on any bike I've ever reviewed. But then the highway ends and some of the problems come back. But I want to head off the guys in the comments who are saying that I'm just being mean to this motorcycle. I'm not. Let me explain why. Now here's what I'm afraid of, right? I'm worried that somebody's going to be watching this review and hear me say and be probably a little bit more open about some of my problems with this motorcycle that I'm having. And they're thinking I'm taking a dump all over it. And that's absolutely not the case. Me pointing out the fact that Kawasaki cut some corners by putting rubber hoses on a hypernaked is not me dogging on this motorcycle. This motorcycle is still a lot of fun. It really, really is. And judging by how hard it has been for me to get my hands on one of these when they're at AF1 for review goes to show how popular this kind of motorcycle is. This is the third time I've tried to get on a ZH2. In a world where hypernakeds, that sounds like a trailer line. In a world where hypernakeds are the most insane things on the street, where they have the same level of technology as a MotoGP motorcycle. In that kind of world, it's really refreshing to be on a motorcycle that understands what it is at its core, and that is a supercharged inline-4 street-slaying weapon. That's all this motorcycle's trying to be. It gives you everything that it needs to just go dominate and be comfortable doing it. You could argue that cutting corners is just the cost of doing business, right? How else are you going to get a supercharger on a motorcycle at scale if you don't save some money on parts elsewhere? How are you going to do it? So I'm open to the business realities of this motorcycle. Let me just say that, right? There are realities that surround this motorcycle that cause it to be like it is. But another thing that I personally love to do as a rider is customize. I love to tweak and tinker, right? So I could put myself an RCS 19 on here if I want. It should have one. I can put steel lines on here if I want. It should have them. You can do all of that. It's totally doable. And in the used market, these things are very, very, very affordable. And if you want that sort of just absolutely insane riding experience, something that is just balls to the wall, does not stop, does not take prisoners, and you want that sort of like Japanese sense of reliability that I know a lot of, like, okay, let's be real. I honestly think that reliability is overblown in comment sections. I think people are too stressed out about it. I think that people complain about reliability unduly because the internet is really, really good at promoting the one bad thing, not the tens of thousands of good things. But if you feel more comfortable with a inline-4 supercharged bike being reliable because it says Kawasaki on it, then here you go. I also love the fact that in a world where we're trying to get every last little bit of power, everything that we can out of inline-4 and naturally aspirated motorcycles, V4s are getting to like 240 horsepower and stuff, Kawasaki was just brave enough to be like, yeah, supercharger. This thing has decades of history and thousands of bodies in its wake. We need to keep up that appearance. This is a truly special motorcycle. It's awesome. I really, really, really like it. But it's also a deeply flawed motorcycle, right? And I think two things can be true at the same time. But its flaws are not keeping me from having a gigantic smile on my face, revving it up, and then just listening to that flutter of the supercharger on engine braking, you know? And that's just what this bike is about. And then, out of experience, I know what happens when you put Brock's performance parts on one of these. I know how outrageous these things can be. And it's super fun, because again, the people who buy this bike know what it's about, and I think that's why it's so popular, because it's the only one that does it. And Kawasaki, to an extent, is the only company that could do this. They're the only company that would be so insane as to be like, yeah, screw it, let's put a supercharger on there because we're selling enough gigantic gazillion horsepower boat motors for cruise ships that, you know, screw it, put the Heavy Industries logo on there. Not the Kawasaki, don't just put Kawasaki on there, put the Heavy Industries logo. This is the best inline 4. Period. This is the best inline 4. Because it makes its power like a V-twin. Ha! Snuck it in there. Because the V-twin is the best power plant. But this just, oh my god. It is too much fun, man. If you're interested in this bike, it probably won't be for sale anymore. But there is a link down there to AF1's website where you can check out all kinds of cool bikes. They're not paying me to say this. They're not going to know this is me saying it. They're the best dealership. Period. I've been to a lot of dealerships, guys. They're the best one I've ever worked with. So, if you're looking for a bike, they do ship, and they get all kinds of cool shit, including ZH2s, if it's on the website long enough for you to put your credit card down on it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.